Oh, hang on a minute.
I was just gonna, it's not like going into a bathroom in a firehouse and they have to have instructions on how to lock the door.
Oh,
That makes
well,
sense.
because it's crazy how it locks. And that's,
And then I got here, never fails. You just think about saying something to somebody about something, and you same thing happens to you. Okay, so I'm gonna click on the
I'm trying to
lithium
find
battery
what
here.
you're.
On these, okay. So let me go to sessions here and go to lithium battery fire. So this is what we'll be able to see what they're saying. Okay.
And I'm trying to share.
Okay.
Trying to find that screen.
Yeah, we went through this before. I know we figured it out. That's all I know.
Share screen. I don't know right there. See, it's that. It's that. Oh, because you know why here. Here's what I need. I don't know if you can see that or not.
No, you can see, I would think it would show up on our left there. Why does it not show up on that? I think we should see it on our left here on my laptop.
You would think so. Okay, so what if I do this?
You know what's weird? I think look, my computer is what we're seeing.
That is what we're seeing here. But when I share,
Of course, that, yeah, because we'd expect it to see it there.
let me do this. So if I hit start to, there it is. Now I gotta get a way to share that. Okay. So if I do, I'm gonna do this, and then this. Did that do it? What the heck's the deal?
Yeah, I'm not.
See, it shows that.
But it doesn't show it here, though.
I haven't see, but it's showing
There
the
it is, there it is.
but it's showing the
View versus the PowerPoint.
yes.
Yeah, for me, that won't matter. For you, that may be an issue
Well,
playing your videos.
But for the guys, what they're seeing is what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, but we saw it up here.
But it was this. It wasn't this portion.
Yeah. But I can tell you at this point, I'd be happy with that. And he might be able to tell us something easy, but at least if we can get it on that screen, even in this view.
So if I hit share screen. Okay, no.
Hi guys, this is Paul.
Hello, Paul.
How are you guys doing?
Well, we're struggling with trying to share our screen here. We don't know if you guys have to do that for us or we have to do it.
I can check in with Pete on that, but I can see some kind of PowerPoint right now on the screen.
We can, and we're trying to get the that's the presenter's view. What do you see anything different now?
I can see you, Chief. I can see me, and then the modern battery technology screen.
Is it full screen or is it got a bunch of little slides on the left-hand side?
It's got a bunch of little slides.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm trying to get rid of them little slides.
Okay.
It, of course.
Are you our moderator, Paul?
Pete said I could chime in and hang out with you guys.
Okay.
He told me that
now?
he told me that you'd be the main guy there, Marlon.
Okay. That's fine.
How's that look now? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, whatever you did, that was good.
All right.
But Marlon, you're always the main guy, so.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
So is that
Don't say that in front of the fire chief.
is that
Right.
so let me go back to slide 1.
Right
There we go. Look at that.
Okay, we're good. We're good.
Now, when we switch to different PowerPoints, that's going to be entertaining.
Yeah, we'll get through that. Well, let me go ahead and hop in there again. Or do you want to start?
No. It's all yours, buddy. And then just click whatever you need to do. Let me turn the volume on for you. There we go. All right.
Oh, yeah, let me have that. Gramina gave me that. You see how long I've had it?
Yeah, I got one of them too.
So the advanced slide, I'm gonna have to click this thing, huh?
Just left click the. Can you just left click the mouse? Will that do it? Or just
Oh, there we
okay.
go. I'll just do
And
that.
if you want to go back, you got it.
Yeah. Okay. Paul, we're all ready to go whenever we go live here. Can you hear me, Paul?
I can, yes.
Okay, good. I see we got a few people. Got a couple people signed in.
How do we know, guys, who's in our session?
I assume they're going to show up in that chat thing on the right that I see. You know, you probably see
Okay.
your chat showing up there, so I see a few people in there.
Okay, so I see I'm on here.
And then Tracy Steffes, he's the chief.
Okay, then I guess Terry is on there. Steve, Marlon, I see you, and some other people. There's Tracy. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear us? Okay, and Marlon and the fire chief.
Hello.
Hello for the fire
Just
chief.
chat back. I think the chat's working. So
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started, Paul, if that's all right with you. And as people come in, they'll just join along with us as we go down our solid waste trails and try to protect the environment. We've also run into issues that we need to protect our public almost immediately from some of our solid waste issues. So here in Morris, Illinois, like I said, I live in the neighboring community. We had that lithium battery fire back in June, I believe. So we decided to put the program together, and a lot of us have been getting emails from the company Fire Rover, which talks about a lot of our garbage and recycling fires. We had another fire close to us not too long ago, Kuzakowski up in Plainfield. Their recycling center also had a large fire not that long ago. But today we're going to mainly focus on the lithium battery event that occurred. How this is going to work is, once again, my name is Marlon Hartman. I'm the Kendall County Solid Waste Coordinator. Was on ILCSWMA for many, many, many years, on the board for I think 10 to 12 years, so I had a great time there. I'm also here with Chief Tracy Steffes from the Morris Fire Protection District, and he's going to go over more of the specifics of how they handled this event. If any of your communities would handle this, this is a challenge. So we're going to talk about some of those challenges as we go through here. So, as we talk about the problem batteries, they've been around, since the late 1800s, early 1900s, but really didn't get going there for a while, for much, much later than that. But what do we use? We use chemicals to react with metals, and then they are able to store this energy, and we're able to use those electrons in whatever way we want to. The problem with these batteries is damage. With our alkaline batteries, right, with potassium hydroxide in them, you've noticed in your flashlights, it's all corroded. Well, that's because that caustic has leaked out of there. So we realize that any kind of battery damage could be an issue. And with some of our metals, they are also going to be water reactive. So any damage in relating to water could be a problem. To go back to kind of the history there, we could see the alkaline batteries with potassium hydroxide. They would react with carbon and zinc. And then we also have more of your liquid type batteries, which is your lead acid battery. So your sulfuric acid reacts with the lead. The challenges with those batteries, corrosives. Once again, they can damage metals, and in large quantities, they can also damage eyes and skin, as in the sulfuric acid in your car batteries. So as we look at how we create this energy, these free electrons, if you will, we use these reactions with the metals. And up until late 1980s, we were still using mostly alkaline and your lead acid batteries. But now with the NiCad, we started having some overcharging incidents. And why do we use lithium? Lithium has the largest potential for electron voltage. So that's why we've kind of changed different metals, because they have more potential to store electrons. And the other great thing about lithium batteries is they can be recharged hundreds of times and they still hold that charge. So as we've gone down this technology scale, we're seeing how these batteries have changed a little bit. In 1996, they came up with a lithium iron phosphate battery. Now, this one greatly reduced the hazards that came along with these lithium batteries, but it did not eliminate the challenge of the thermal runaway. So we look at some of these other modern batteries. We use reactions with metals to free electrons. Nickel, cadmium, lithium, all of them give us more power. But with that more power, we have more of a risk of a thermal reaction runaway. OSHA has even chimed in on this, where OSHA has said, hey, we need to inform our employees of the hazards of these lithium batteries. So this discussion on the hazards of lithium has gone far outside the DOT. The DOT has been working on it for a while with planes. They don't like to have lithium battery fires in a plane. Here's just a little diagram of what your lithium battery is. You have lithium oxides on one side and lithium metal with carbon on the other side. I certainly don't understand the science behind it, but this is kind of the breakdown of it. Now, here's probably the most important slide that I'm going to talk about, and Chief Steffes will go into this even more. When we start seeing the failure of my lithium battery, you can see in the first stage one, the anode breakdown due to overheating goes up to 176 degrees, give or take. Stage two, it starts releasing flammable hydrocarbons. Yeah, fumes such as gasoline fumes, not pure gasoline, obviously, but these fumes are like hydrogen and very flammable. And then they start getting even hotter. And once they get hot enough, they start detonating those flammable gases. And you can see as it goes on to stage 4, now open flame. So if it hasn't ignited from the temperature increase, once you have open flame, they're going to have the problem of the explosion of those gases. Now, if you have one phone alone, it does, of course, cause risk. We've had homes burned down. We've had cars burn up. We've had iPads burn up on people's laps. But when we bring these all together in the solid waste industry and have a bunch of them together, it causes a big problem, because once one battery cell fails and a thermal runaway, it causes one to the next to it to happen, the one next to it to happen. And as a case here in Morris, when they had a lot of them stored together, we had a lot of flammables being released and a lot of burning lithium. And then the last bullet there, the enormous issue that these fires cannot be treated like normal fires. It requires special training, planning, and also the proper types of extinguishing agents. These type of fires burn at over 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So water is really not a good choice. As we look at the scope of these issues, you see these numbers here, more than 25,000 overheating or fire incidences through those periods of time. The next couple graphs I'm going to show you are also just giving us the number issues that we have here, the number of incidents we have with these. And I did get this from Fire Rover. I'm sure a lot of us in our emails get some of these. So as you look at your little chart here, and like I said, it's kind of small numbers. At this point, e-scrap is pretty far down on the list. But just the number of fires in the waste industry alone, but obviously these lithium fires create even more hazards than just your regular recycling materials when they burn. So we can see here a large number of fires in the United States and Canada in our garbage industry. And once again, this is a bar graph putting those numbers kind of in a different fashion. So obviously fires in the waste industry are an issue. And now with the additional lithium batteries, they're becoming more of an issue. So how do we prevent this? Well, we separate our materials. Well, it's not that easy, right? These batteries can be small, they can be large. The one little bullet there talks about your greeting cards that has your little song inside it. Guess what? That's a lithium battery inside of that. So how do we go through the process of making sure these lithium batteries don't end up in the wrong locations? And as the last bullet points out, we're starting to realize the gravity of the situation due to so many fires that we've had and communities that have been put at risk. So what our basic goal here is a couple things. One, we need to educate the public on the hazards of these lithium batteries and the proper way to dispose of them. Technology, we've got to come up with better ways of disposal. All these disposal methods need to be convenient. Planning, our emergency responders need to know that they have these types of hazards in their area. We need to train our employees. And the one thing that Fire Rover talks about, I don't want to be a commercial for them, but they do have that passive system that automatically finds the fire and gets onto it and puts it out before it totally gets out of control. And once again, I point out that if we have good operating facilities, and that is part of our job, is to inspect these facilities and making sure that these things are being done. Here's a little tidbits from OSHA on how we should handle these battery issues. I'm not going to go through all of those, but there's some basically do's and don'ts of how to handle your batteries with these types of hazards. So some other variables that are causing some fires in the waste industry, obviously the increasing number of lithium batteries. There are people saying that the climate change, just the average heat of our garbage is sitting in heaps, is having a factor. They say that right now we have a post-pandemic surge of waste. I'm not so sure about that. And then once again, staffing shortages. We know right now you can't throw a rock without hitting 5 help wanted signs out there, right? So keeping staff, keeping them trained on what hazards they're going to have to deal with. With that said, I'm going to just talk a little bit about the EPA and the Attorney General's work on this fire. And then I'm going to turn it over to Chief Steffes, and he's going to have to switch PowerPoints, maybe a little challenge here for us, but he has a very informative presentation on how they had to deal with this emergency. So you can see here the little information. Superior Battery on Benton Street in Morris happened on June 29th. So the EPA has come in and they have taken enforcement action against Superior Battery, which include obtain a consultant to determine the cause of the fire, cease and or prevent releases from the site, contain any runoff and prevent any off-site discharge of water, provide a detailed inventory of site materials and a description of the processes performed at the site, and identify any waste streams generated at the site through this process. Others from the AG office provide an estimate of air contaminants emitted, develop and implement plans to properly remove and dispose of the waste from the site. That's still going to be an issue. Retain an environmental contractor and establish procedures to prevent future reoccurrences. So that is what the Attorney General has requested from that. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Steffes, and we're going to try to flip PowerPoints here, so bear with us for a moment.
Could everybody hear that okay with Marlon? Did that work out okay? Paul, I see you shaking
Yes.
your head.
Mm,
All right.
yeah, it's good.
If you have a fire, I'm your guy. But if it comes to the computer, probably not your best option. Oops, not up. Oh, didn't come up yet. All right, I'm trying to get so you don't have to look at the presenters portion. We were having a challenge with this. So if we have to, we'll just do the presenters portion and you guys will stumble through it. Well, we'll look at the presenters portion and hopefully you guys can see this okay. Yeah, like Marlon said, can you hear me okay, Paul?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, we can't get that any bigger right now. Yeah, back at the end of June, we had a fire, and you can see from the view of this building here. This building was about 300 by 200, had a loading dock in the north end. And this was a Superior Battery site, which was a facility that they don't manufacture batteries. They store them there. And then the gentleman that owns the building and the business would sell them. And he sold to the medical field. He had batteries for medical devices in hospitals and different other appliances that he would sell. And like Marlon said, the batteries in there ranged from the small button batteries, which is a lithium metal battery, all the way up to actually lithium gel batteries, which I'd never heard of till I had this fire. But the gentleman was planning on putting solar panels on the roof and feed it into these battery racks and then dump the power back out to the grid and make money. That didn't end up working very well for him. He ended up having a building with a fire. And the thing is this building, the roof on it was in very, very bad shape. So we knew we had a lightning strike close to the area. We had a lot of water intrusion from the weather. So we're not 100% sure how the fire started yet, but we know there was a lot of different things. And then I'll see if I can play this video for you, and I'll turn the volume up. And this is just a quick clip of a press conference we had, and you can kind of get a view of the building.
And we're continuing to follow that breaking news out of Morris, where a building containing lithium batteries is on fire right now. We're looking at live pictures from Skycam 9. Fire officials just finished giving an update on the efforts to fight that fire.
It's been going on for hours, and WJN's Dana Revick is live at the scene with the latest on this dangerous situation. Dan?
Yes, we are here very close to this plant, but we actually moved a couple of blocks further away after hearing from the fire chief here in Morris, Tracy Steppes. He talked about the evacuations that took place this morning and how toxic this smoke can be. So we just wanted to give ourselves a little bit more distance. But if you take a look again at Skycam 9, you can see the smoke at this time. This fire has been burning now for about 5 hours. The fire chief said the call came in at 11:42 a.m. from Superior Batteries. That is the name of this company at 919 East Benton Street here in Morris. Now, this is on the old Federal Paperboard property. That paper mill shut down in 1980, quite some time ago, but part of the structure there was demolished, but there are still some other smaller buildings that are used for storage on that property. The fire chief said he was unaware of the contents of this building. It's about 300 by 100 feet. That's the measurements of this structure. And he says inside, here is him talking about the quantity, the high amount of these lithium batteries that are inside.
We're dealing with between 80 and 100 ton of lithium batteries. So around 180,000 pounds to 200,000 pounds of lithium batteries. These batteries range in size from your cell phone to a little bigger than a car battery. And as these batteries get wet, they short out and they ignite and explode. And that's the problem we're having. So we started our initial attack with water, and then we learned very quickly that that was not going to be a good avenue for extinguishment for this fire.
And he said that right now the U.S. EPA has advised them not to use foam either, that just any type of liquid will just make this situation worse. He says that right now they're actually considering possibly using road salt to try to put this fire out. He said he is going to be in touch with a fire chief in Arizona that dealt with a lithium battery fire recently and see if they have any ideas. But we're told officials with the EPA should be on scene here within the next 30 minutes. Now, as far as the evacuations here go, we're told between 4,000 to 5,000 residents have been evacuated from Armstrong Street to the river and from Route 47 to Washington Street. Right now, there are several places where people can go if they need somewhere to stay during this evacuation. The Grundy County Administration Building on Union Street and the VFW building on Route 47. As far as how long this evacuation could last, he says definitely it's a possibility this could be overnight, 24-hour situation, but he does not think this will last as long as the chemical fire that we saw recently up in Rockton. He said it's like comparing a mouse to an elephant, that this is a much smaller situation here, and hopefully they can get a handle on it within the next day. Live and more.
Okay, I wanted you guys to see that so you can kind of get a good size up of the building size we were dealing with. And yes, so we don't have an exact count on the batteries yet, because today, I can give you an update where we're at today. We're still working on the cleanup process. The owner has not submitted an approved cleanup plan yet. He has till the end of the month. If it's not submitted and approved by then, and it's being approved by the US EPA, then the US EPA will take over the site, and then they will start the cleanup process. However, the problem is we're getting into fall, the beginning of winter weather. So there's going to have to be a change of actually not cleaning up the site this winter, but trying to secure the batteries that are still there, that have either minimal damage or not been damaged, and secure them inside that building for the winter, and then start that cleanups process in the spring. But this was a privately owned building by the business owner. He had no insurance on the building. He had no business license, and his storage there was completely unknown to anybody locally. And People have asked how that happens. Well, you guys are in the refuge business. You guys don't know what people throw in their garbage can day to day, and you pick it up. It's the same thing with us. Person paid cash for the building, so there was no loan, so there was no requirement from a financial company to prove that it had insurance on it. The business license, it's a ordinance, so it's a $750 fine. But the property owner and the business owner made a comment to me. He said, I wasn't running a business out of the building. I was using it as a storage building. The business is run out of my house. Here's the address of the business. So this comes down to a code enforcement issue. And some of these slides I'm going to jump over because this presentation was made for fire chiefs that I presented yesterday to the Illinois fire chiefs. But we need to get into code enforcement with the fire code. And I know that doesn't involve you guys, but I've been working with some partners about helping with the code and what they're proposing, because the best way, and Marlon had said it earlier, is segregation of these batteries. The types of lithium batteries, having them segregated from each other, making sure that there's enough distance from each store, say pallets, if you're going to store them in a building, to make sure that the pallets are only allowed to be X amount of weight, and they have to have X amount of open airspace between them. And by type also, because these lithium batteries, there's a fallacy in fire service that we can't use water to fight them. And that's not 100% true, because there are lithium batteries that we can fight this thermal runaway with water. But if you take a lithium metal battery, now that's a little different monster that we're dealing with. But for a lot of the lithium batteries, we can use water. But there's also this fallacy that people think they can put out a lithium battery once it goes in the thermal runaway, and that's not true. You cannot stop the thermal runaway once it starts in a battery. Once the battery has reached that phase that it's into thermal runaway, it's going to complete that process. And the only thing you can do is to get enough water to the batteries around that's surrounding the battery in thermal runaway and try to stop that propagation to the batteries that are not affected yet. That's how you control it. You don't control the chemical reaction. You control the batteries that haven't reached that point of chemical reaction. And in the fire service, we have different ways. We're very good at what we do when we have hazardous materials such as hydrocarbons and stuff like that. We know how to deal. We know how to deal with them fires. We've been dealing with them for decades. And there's a lot of products out there. You can see in this slide the purple stuff. It's called Purple K. It's used by a lot of ARF trucks and the chemical industry and the hydrocarbon industry. We can apply Purple K. We tried Purple K on a battery fire, and it had absolutely no effect. Sand and road salt is a good option, but what the challenge there is the application of it. How do you apply sand or road salt 200 feet deep in the center of a building on on 10,000 pounds of lithium batteries are burning? You could conveyor it in with a concrete conveyor, but I don't know of a concrete conveyor owner that's going to allow you to put his several $100,000 machine into a building that's still burning and damage his conveyor. So though that them products are successful, you can't apply them. So we come up with the idea of using Portland cement. Now Portland cement is a very low moisture, in fact, almost zero moisture content product, and it's used in the making of concrete ready mix. So you mix Portland cement, aggregates such as gravel, sand, and water, and that's how you come up with ready mix cement like you see on the roads or building your houses. So Portland cement, this was come up with the chief from Plainfield and myself and two concrete people from the area, and we were able to get 28 tons of it on a truck. It's actually it's not very expensive. It was $3,200 for 28 tons of Portland cement. And you can see here, we lashed a 4-inch hard rubber hose to the end of a track hoe, and we used an air compressor, which the cement truck, the Portland cement truck that hauls it, had an air compressor, and we pumped this stuff on top of the batteries. and we covered them batteries. Now, did it stop the thermal runaway phase? It did not. But what it did do is it slowed down the process of how these batteries were going through thermal runaway. So it bought us time in controlling the speed of the thermal runaway, which allowed us to take a breath and to get the people back into their homes. We had them out of the homes over 2 days. We could get people back into their homes, and it helped to hold down some of the gases. You know, we get the HF gas off this thing. That's what you worry about. But this is a drone footage also I want you guys to watch. This was shot by the Sheriff's Department. Our Sheriff's Department, our city police have a very, very robust drone program. And you can see these batteries are in thermal runaway. If you watch the video, you can see the piles of batteries. We've identified 27 different types of lithium batteries, types of batteries in this building. And you can see that the pilot from the Sheriff's Department, they're really good. I can't say enough about them. They practice flying inside buildings all the time. They can actually fly floor to floor by using the elevators. So they flew inside the building, and you're going to see he's going to click over. There you go. He clicked over to his thermal image on the drone, and you can actually see the hot seat of where the thermal runaway is taking place with these batteries. And this is going to run for about a minute here, minute and a half, and I'll keep talking through it. You can see as he flies around and pans around the interior of the building, you can see the different spots of the thermal runaway that's taking place in these batteries. And this was very, very helpful to us because it gave us a good idea of, you know, what parts in the building we had to work on trying to cool down to get this thermal runaway to not propagate to the rest of the batteries. So I don't know in your transfer stations with waste if drone footage would work good. I don't know how large. Maybe you already do have video coverage, but this was very successful for us, and it made our job a lot easier. We didn't have to put people in harm's way to go in and do any recon to see where we had to apply water, because we did apply water to some of these spots you're seeing here. This is before the Portland cement was put on. After the Portland cement was put on, about 24 to 48 hours later, I did about 2 flights a day with the drones. And so after the Portland cement was applied, about 2 days later, we did some more drone flights, and we found where we had about 5 hot spots. And so we come up with some new terms around here. We call it goose drowning. So that's a lot of water. And then so we figure 1,000 gallons a minute at the seat of the thermal runaway was a good flow rate that allowed us to allow the thermal runaway in the batteries that were already involved to continue, but yet to not propagate to the other unaffected batteries. And, what's strange in this fire here, back in this area right here, these are cardboard boxes, and cardboard burns at roughly 275 degrees. That cardboard boxes weren't even damaged whatsoever. So you have high temperatures with the thermal runaway, well over 1,000 degrees at sometimes, but yet you have cardboard within 15, 20 feet of it and don't become involved. We always, I was told early on to be ready for the long haul in this fire. I didn't expect how long it was going to be, but we were 28 days. We had thermal runaway going on there. So we were 4 weeks into that fire, and we kept a presence there for 4 weeks. Marlon talked about this thermal runaway phase. It don't start at a real high temperature. We're talking 120, 170 degrees. So these batteries, it doesn't take a lot to get them aggravated if they're damaged or compromised because they've either been dropped or the housing is broke or whatever, and you get some water in there and they short out. When you look at the lithium strips, the layers of lithium, they're separated by almost a layer thickness of a piece of paper. But here's a video here too, and this is just a stock video off the internet you can find. It's a lithium strip that's stripped out of a battery and just dropped into water, and you can see how it reacts. And this is how meth users cook their meth. I don't know if you've ever heard, but people that cook meth and smoke meth will steal batteries from the Walgreens down the street, and they'll unroll that battery and take the lithium strips out of it, and they'll throw it in water because they need to create a heat. This is a reaction that they can create, and you'll see here it eventually turns to fire. So a lot of times that when the police, we'll get called with the police because they'll come across a meth lab that's being operated in an igloo cooler in the back seat of a car because the guys are just driving around cooking their meth for a few hours. But they're using the lithium and they catch the car on fire. We've done that before. Go and put a car fire out because the people smoking meth and making meth had started a car on fire because they had the lithium strips in the igloo cooler in the back seat. What's at stake here? Marlon talked about it. Airplanes, your lithium phones, your laptop batteries, your cars. That top left-hand picture, that is not the fire I went to, but about 2 weeks into our fire, I got called to the next town over, Marseilles. They had a Conex box with 18,000 pounds, 9 ton of lithium batteries. And this Conex box was at the base of a windmill. So the windmill would generate DC power, send it down to this Conex box, charge these batteries. These batteries would then at a certain time discharge that current into a transformer. The transformer would turn it into AC and kick it up and then send it out into the grid and sell it. That Conex box, I don't know what caused the fire, but there was some type of malfunction. It caught on fire. It looked just like this Conex box here burning. And the best thing we did is we were about a quarter mile outside the gates of the LaSalle County nuclear plant. So we allowed it to burn for about 6 or 8 hours, and it burned up most of the lithium batteries. And then we used water and finished extinguishing the batteries that weren't involved. It was about a $2 million to $3 million Conex box with batteries in it. And these are starting to show up at these windmill farms. And there's, in fact, I think
And solar farms too.
Yes.
Solar farms.
Yeah, the solar farms. And I think Tesla just had one of these burn in another country. I can't remember where at off the top of my head, but they're creating a hazard, and people take the lithium metal batteries. They're the little button batteries we find in our watches, we find in our remote control garage door openers. They're everywhere, and we had hundreds of thousands of them in this building. And when they burn, it's like gunfire going off. And they're shooting around, and I can't imagine how many people every day throw them into the garbage and throw them in their garbage can, and you guys are picking them up at the curb. So I could see you guys having the opportunity to have a lot of fires at these transfer places. I will tell you this: if anybody tells you they have a product to stop a battery from when it goes into thermal runaway, that they have a product they can put on it and stop it, and they can stop the thermal runaway phase, they're not telling you the truth. There's nothing out there that can stop it from going in. Once it hits thermal runaway, it's going to go through its process. You need to stop it from propagating to the area around it. That's the only thing they have right now. I've been working with a company that does work for the U.S. Navy and their submarines in Indianapolis, and another gentleman out of Detroit. There are some new technologies out there they're testing, but nothing's been brought to the marketplace. And it's going to get worse. We're electrifying everything, our cars and everything out there. I'm not against this electrification, but we need to do it properly and make sure that we have the codes to enforce it. But I can see from you guys on the waste end, it's going to get worse because it's an inconvenience for people to recycle. So when something's inconvenient, they don't do it. Now, do people recycle? Absolutely. But if it's not convenient, most people don't do it. It's got to be convenient. So there probably needs to be some changes, and I'm not in the waste management field, but I think we all have a part in this, from the first responders to the manufacturers of the batteries to from the Marlon and I were talking earlier, from the cradle to the grave. There's responsibility for everybody here, and we all gotta have skin in the game to be successful. So I don't know if we want to take any questions from anybody, or
if anybody has any questions, they should show up in the chat room. So if you guys want to send your questions on chat. While we're waiting, Tracy, you talked about you put 1,000 gallons per minute of water on that for a while. How did you collect that 1,000 gallons per minute?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what we did is before we started flowing a large amount of water, I hired a contractor that came in and dug a 4-foot by 6-foot moat around the building. We actually brought the surveying crew in, surveyed the elevation so we knew which way the water was going to run. And we brought in a huge track hoe, and in a matter of 40 minutes, that guy moved some dirt and dug us a moat. And I got vac trucks in and some frac tanks so we could start collecting that water if we had to. Now, what's ironic is the toxicity of the water was actually sometimes lower than the runoff we get in a normal house fire. You would think that's crazy, but I think the problem is you have to use so much water to control these fires that the dilution rate is extremely high. But another thing we did too is we really, once we figured out we didn't know we had lithium batteries, and once we found out after we were there what we were dealing with, we stopped the water flow because we didn't know what types of batteries, so we wanted to be successful and not create a bigger hazard than maybe just letting the batteries burn. So we controlled how much water we put in it, and we kept track of how much water we put in there. But yeah, we could vac it up, put it in frac tanks. And and another thing I brought up during the fire was if we're going to pump water on the fire and we're going to collect it in a moat, I said, why can't we reuse that water? We don't have to use clean water every time to put back on the fire. So I brought up the idea that, how about we just start drafting water out of the moat and putting it back on the fire? It doesn't matter if it's dirty water. Now, is that going to be rough on the fire truck? Yeah, it's going to be. But to rebuild the pump on a fire truck for $20,000 or $25,000 and to try to clean up an environmental hazard, it's not even fair. And when you look at that money, so I would definitely go ahead and pay the cost of rebuilding the fire truck pump over the cost of causing that environmental hazard, because the cost savings would be tremendous. But that's another thing to consider. So, yeah, I at this point in my career, I wasn't planning on getting this involved in batteries, but I didn't have a choice. So, but I just spoke to the Illinois fire chiefs yesterday in Peoria, talked to about 125, 150 fire chiefs down there, and there's just not a lot of knowledge, I should say knowledge, a lot of information that's been pushed out to the fire service on lithium batteries. They just tell us put a lot of water on it for a long time. Well, okay, that doesn't work for us. We need to know how much for how long, and we need some products that can take care of business. We know what to do. We know how to do it if we have the tools and the appliances and the product to apply it. But right now we're losing. We can handle car fires and hydrocarbon fires, but these lithium fires are going to be a new challenge, and I'm not going to be the last one to have this. In fact, here's how prepared we are for these fires. 5 Sundays ago, the fire chief at Edwards Air Force Base, they don't keep their batteries in their drones. So when their drones aren't flying, they take the batteries out of them, and they store the batteries separate from the drones. The batteries caught on fire in a hangar, and the fire chief from Edwards Air Force Base called the gentleman I know in Detroit and asked for my cell phone number because he wanted to figure out how to put out these drone battery fires. Now, if the fire chief of Edwards Air Force Base is calling Tracy Stephenson, Morris, Illinois, asking how to put out lithium battery fires at the U.S. Air Force Base, we're not prepared. I mean, I I think I'm smart, and I stayed at the Holiday Inn Express last night, but that tells us that it's just not us. This is a nationwide issue. So, but I don't know how many listeners we have.
We have like 35.
Okay.
It was like 35.
And I don't see any
Yeah,
questions.
you got to
out
go
there.
to people for the scene.
Oh, okay.
Well, like I said, Tracy, let me jump in there for a minute
Yep.
while you're kind of looking there and kind of do that on mine if you care to. To kind of close up here, unless somebody sends in some questions, Paul, if you see any questions come up, by all means, let us know.
I will.
But I think the biggest issue that I want to get across here today is many of you listening are in charge of enforcement, inspecting some of these facilities. When you go into these facilities now, you need to ask, how are you handling your batteries? How are you handling lithium batteries? Where do you keep them? Are you storing them in a proper location away from other things? Are you prepared if we have a lithium battery event? Is your community prepared to be evacuated for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days because of this event? We have a responsibility in the solid waste industry now. We know this hazard is out there. We cannot afford to allow our communities to be evacuated and to be put at risk because people are mismanaging our waste. When we talked about recycling, plastic bottles as litter, but now plastic's in the ocean. But these lithium batteries are causing an acute hazard very quickly in our society. And we're in the business where most of those issues are occurring. With that, Paul, Chief Steffes, anything you want to add at all?
No.
Hey, Marlon.
Yeah.
I was just curious on the education standpoint for our residents. What's going on out there to tell them for proper recycling, disposal?
I could say this, from working with the US EPA, there is, they are, with the cleanup that we have going on here with our site, here's the biggest challenge they're having is there's really no set standards for recycling these batteries. They can't find a place to send them. That's what part of our holdup is too, is number one, where are they going? And number two, how are we going to get them there? Because each battery has to be properly transported. The last thing you want to do is take a skid steer in there, put them in a roll-off dumpster, go down the road, and next thing you know, you're running from here to point A to point B with the thermal runaway going on in this dumpster going down the road.
Right.
So there is no true recycling for lithium batteries. And when I say that, people look at me and say, well, you just don't know. Well, when the US EPA tells me, I got to take them at their face value. So
I know we
that's
offer
a big challenge.
For our residents, we offer electronics recycling, and we do take lithium batteries along with other rechargeable batteries right now. I have lithium batteries in our warehouse right in this building right now.
Yeah, but and nowhere for them to go, right?
No, we have an outlet for them, but we have to store them for a good amount of time. No, we don't have a lot of them back there. We have a very small amount. But I know we're just a small drop in the bucket, but we do offer recycling for those things for our residents through our electronics.
Yeah.
They're going up to dynamic recycling up in Wisconsin. So I got some good points from you as far as how to store these things better back there. But again, we're talking probably under 100. We're not talking a lot of batteries. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have a electronics recycling facility 2 blocks from where I had this fire, and I know for a fact right now they have probably 40 ton sitting inside their building right now.
Sure.
And they don't know where to send them.
Oh, okay.
And that place you talked about in Wisconsin, that was a place that was brought up about taking our batteries.
Mm-hmm.
But once they get there, we don't know where they're going to go from there.
Right.
There's actually talk about shipping them to Asia. I know that sounds crazy, but Asia is, very, very much electrified.
Right.
So, yeah, no,
Sure.
If someone comes up with how to recycle them, we can make a lot of money.
Yeah. We have some
I won't be the
comments
fire
here.
chief.
Joy was asking any advice on business storage and collection.
Yeah, well, here's what I had asked a lot of people. How do we get to this point where we have all these batteries that are 4 or 5 ton of them on a pallet that are like from, say, a lawnmower, the Go lawnmowers, or just the cordless tools.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is Larry's Recycling will stop into, so let's say, Home Depot, and he'll put a 55-gallon drum and say, hey, I'll put this drum in here. Let your customers throw their recyclables in here, lithium batteries, and you pay me $5 a pound, and I'll pick them up when it's full. So Larry picks it up every month and charges Home Depot $500 for picking it up. The problem is Larry might not be a responsible waste hauler, and he'll take them and either dump them in a ditch or dump them in a barn on a farm. He takes his $500 and he doesn't care where they're at and who's dealing with them. So they really don't. Is there a proper way to collect them and store them? There is. They should be stored with zero energy, zero in them. You actually got to take a voltmeter and test them. But the problem is we know that that's not happening.
Right.
I was told the only good batteries is a new battery and a dead battery.
Sure.
Anything in between you can have problems with. So, when they're shipped, they can only have so much charge in them. I forget what the percentage is. But the biggest thing is having them in a clean place, a dry place, and a cool place.
Sure.
And and until we find out how they're going to recycle them, they're going to be sitting. I've been told by some people that have physically seen it in Asia. They're driving them to the edges of the towns, and they're 10 and 12 foot high piles of lithium batteries for acres, just stacked up on top of each other. So they haven't figured it out either.
No.
Juliet
was talking about municipalities also need to be aware of any permits and codes. I don't know how many permits and codes we have out there for these things. It doesn't sound like many right now.
None.
So none. Okay.
The fire code is going to be updated in 20. The next update is scheduled for 2024. I do have a sample copy of what they're proposing. It's supposed to be approved this fall, but it won't go in effect till 2024 for lithium batteries. And I know that the lithium battery industry is not very excited about the codes that are changing for storage because they have a lot of, it's going to cost them money. It's going to cost it's to make them safe. It's going to cost money. So they're not happy. And apparently, I've been told I'm as subtle as a freight train accident. So I've actually had the ear of some people that have been pushing this for me since this fire. And they said that the lithium battery manufacturers are getting a little nervous because towns are going to start adopting these ordinances once they come out.
Yeah.
And it's going to cost some money, but we have to do it because we're going to end up killing somebody.
Well, the DOT has already started making changes. The DOT probably 2 years ago started changing DOT rules. I think a lot of us who have recycled batteries in the unit had to tape over the terminals and stuff like that. So, the DOT's kind of been in the forefront of this, but some of the other industries, NFPA, OSHA, kind of fell behind. But the DOT has already been promulgating some new regulations out there to address that. And one of the other questions was on there is, how do we communicate this to businesses and things like that? One thing, with all these batteries, there's there's booklets that come with a lot of them, but most of us throw those away. But as Chief Steffes pointed out, cool, dry place. They need special storage requirements. You just can't throw them next to everything, and that's one of the key things. And the other key thing is people need to know what they're dealing with now. These are things that need a little bit better care than we give them. Just throwing them around, right? Just throwing them around. So another question on there, Tracy. Anything else on that?
The one was about business storage. I think someone said under 30%. I believe that that's probably. I think they're probably referring to the charge for it to be shipped. Yeah. And then someone put on there, call to recycling should be able to accept them. So we during this fire, I was actually in another building because of the fire, and I found 8,400 pounds of of lithium metal batteries on 2 pallets stored in a building next door. Had nothing to do with the fire. So I'm like, so I don't know. I got a battery magnet in my pocket here, Morris. I don't know what it is, but you know, my battery, in my car's probably dead, but I can't, you know. But it's been interesting this summer. So, and I hope we gave you guys a little bit of information. We're not battery experts. I just happen to be the guinea pig that have had the largest quantity of batteries and most diversified battery fire in the nation. We're not a big town. I only protect 22,000 people. And so they just happened to pick me. So I guess for the next 2 years, I'll be riding my circuit and talking to people and wanting to educate people on what's out there. So,
Well, thank you. And it sounds like this is an emerging waste stream that, you know, people in our organization need to be aware of for sure. So,
yeah, I agree.
All right. It was a pleasure.
Yes.
thank you, Marlon.
Yep. And thank you for inviting us. And if you guys ever need anything, don't hesitate to call.
Thank you, Chief.
All right. Have a good day.